Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be working on a 2015 Nissan Versa Note. It has been experiencing some rumbling noise coming from the engine area as you're starting to accelerate. Obviously a little concerning, but I don't think it's as bad as it could be, which would be that CVT transmission that is notorious for failing prematurely. I've done all the servicing on this car's CVT so that it will not fail. It has the best chance of surviving, but I think I've identified what's actually going on. So obviously that noise is a bit concerning, but I believe it's the AC compressor clutch bearing that's causing all that fuss. And there's this overtone of squealing belt, which I believe is just down to not using the OEM Nissan serpentine belt. It's starting to gloss over on the backside and slip and create that squeak. So we're going to try and fix both those problems, that growling and that squeaking, here in this video. Now to get things started, I do need to jack the car up, take the passenger front wheel off to get access to that AC compressor. Now it's impossible to see, but there is a 13mm bolt that goes on the belt tensioner, and you need to turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. Here's the belt, and you can see how it is really shiny on this side. In fact, you can hear that. So where it's squeaking, I think, is on this outside, where it runs against the water pump and the tensioner. And you can see some like burn marks almost, where I think it just slips. So it's not that the belt is ready to wear out. I replaced this when I bought the car, so it has maybe 10,000 miles on it. It's a Goodyear. But I think this is a situation where it's just always better to put the original part back in, because it is truly a higher quality part. So here is the Nissan replacement, and you can notice a pretty stark difference in the build quality of the outer side, or the outer edge of the belt. See how this has a kind of matte finish fabric, where this is just a hard rubber. So this will quiet down the contact between the pulleys quite a bit. And on the inside, it looks to be felt lined. I'm pretty sure this belt started that way, but this just generally looks like a higher quality belt. Granted, this is twice the price. This was like 50 bucks, but if it doesn't make you go crazy every time you start the car, then I think it's worth it. That's issue number one we're trying to fix. The next one is the compressor pulley itself. Now hopefully you can hear this bearing, but it sounds really bad. You can notice all this kind of red dust. Now some of this is just part of the clutch. When it disengages and engages, it kind of throws this metallic compound everywhere, but I think part of it is actually the bearing that has ceased to be. So clearly that bearing is on its way out, and I think it's transferring all of that grumbling noise through the chassis of the car, making it sound like something worse is happening. Now what I'm hoping is I can actually remove this pulley and clutch assembly without having to disassemble or remove the compressor itself. But of course, being a front-wheel drive car, you've got bulkheads and chassis rails everywhere that get in your way, so sometimes you do have to remove the full component. But we'll see, there is a bolt right through the middle of there that should allow most of this to just kind of slide off. So we'll see how lucky we get. Now there's a snap ring that actually holds the bearing and hub on there. So after messing with this for a bit, this clearly needs to be pulled off with a puller from the actual compressor shaft. It's just seized on there. So unfortunately, the only way to get access to do that is to unbolt the compressor. I think it's held in with 3 bolts, 2 at the front, 1 at the back. And hopefully I can then maneuver it around so that the face of this allows me to put a puller on the front of it to extract that pulley. That is all 3 bolts loosened, and that might be good enough to get the puller on there. Okay, so I finally got this compressor oriented so I get this fairly straight on there. I just put a block of wood and jammed it up against this front cross member to kind of get it angled and kind of stay there. So now, moment of truth, will this stay on there? And pull the hub off. All right, there's one more piece of this assembly. I don't have to replace it, but I might as well since I'm here, is this magnetic ring that actually actuates the clutch. And that's held in with another circlip, so here's hoping my snap ring plier will actually fit in there. Alright, so that is all the components of the old one removed, but I think all of this shows that it was on its way out. That clutch is looking really grooved. So here's a brand new aftermarket assembly, new bearing. It feels really nice and smooth. New magnetic coil. clutch plate hub thing. This also comes with new snap rings, new center bolts, and shims. You want to make sure you set the gap on the hub correctly. I was able to buy this whole assembly for around $40, which seems like a good deal. It's not available from Nissan, and it's not available from the OEM supplier as far as I could tell, but at the end of the day, this looks like high quality stuff. It'll certainly be better than what was in there. This has about 110,000 miles just for reference. That is kind of a tight fit, or a press fit even. So we're gonna try and make a makeshift press with this bolt and washer. And just hope this works. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that pressed all the way on there with a washer because the inner shaft protrudes past the bearing. So I made a special spacer out of PVC pipe that I'm hoping will work to press this all the way on there. For anyone interested in doing this themselves, I did have to modify this PVC piece. So the inner diameter needs to be around 30 millimeters, and then the outer needs to be around 42. And depth, approximately, looks like 13 millimeters. That should do you fine to get that pressed on there. Bolt I used, I think this is an M6 or M8. It's the same thread and diameter screw that goes on the main shaft, but it needs to be approximately 35 millimeters long in order to push it through. So that is now in place. I can feel the groove where the snap ring goes. All right, next we're going to have to define how much gap is on the hub. The new kit included 2 spacers, so I'm just going to slide them both on there, and we'll just adjust from there. I'm clearly going to need more spacers than that because it's got drag. Put one of the old spacers back on there. Still has some drag. All right, so that no longer has any drag. Now we'll get the feeler gauges out and see how much gap there is. So the minimum is 0.255. We'll see where we're at. Okay, that feels pretty good. Reinstall the bolt and make sure that measurement holds. Now I just need to snug that bolt and then we start putting everything back together. To put this rear innermost bolt, super long one, in first, or else the radiator prevents you from actually slipping it in. Now let's see how much quieter this pulley is. silent, which is exactly what we were looking for. Alright, that's tightened up pretty good. General rule of thumb, it's not very scientific, but correct serpentine belt tension is felt by turning it in the longest run of the belt, trying to get it perpendicular. If you can get it just perpendicular but not any further, then that's generally tight enough. So that feels pretty good. Otherwise, that's all we're doing here. I'm going to turn it on real quick and make sure there's no obvious issues, and then we'll probably be good. Alright, that is the squeak gone as far as I can tell. Generally has less rumbling going on, but the only way we'll really know is if we get out and do a road test. And there you have it for under $100. I fixed the Versa, got rid of a noise, and made sure that we didn't have a premature transmission failure by diagnosing something that just needed to be fixed, and basically by process of elimination determined that was indeed the noise that I was hearing. But it just goes to show that it's worth throwing a little bit of money into an old car just to keep it going, because otherwise it works fine. Well, that's all there is for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all again soon.